Hi, I'm Cheyenne Cook and I'm the owner of CK Solutions. We specialize in industrial hygiene here in Denver. Stay tuned to hear about how we help clean up the messes others have left behind as we speak with some of our esteemed colleagues and friends.
Hey everyone, welcome to CK Solutions Safety Talks. Today we have Brandon Harris. Brandon Harris works for Biorn. And Brandon, who is Biorn and what do you guys do?
So Bjorn is a service-disabled veteran-owned business. That is myself, actually. I'm the owner of the company. And we are a small business. We are a government contractor. Primarily, we work with government contracts and at the state, federal, municipal level. Really doesn't, we don't stick to one per se. Like anybody that wants us to work for them, we'll go work for them. But it's basically with government contracting. Not to say that we couldn't do stuff that's not necessarily government contracting. That's kind of our where we focus our time and efforts.
Okay, cool. So how has Biorn been going above and beyond on occupational safety standards?
Having been military myself and having worked around the world doing different things and worked for different companies myself, to me, your number one asset is your people, right? So to me, a lot of people look at safety as in a different way. They look at it as something they need to do or whatever. To me, I look at it as protecting the most valuable asset that I have, right? So if I can make my people safe, they're the gold. They're the most important thing. They're the ones that actually make you money. They're the ones that make your company successful. So if you're not protecting them, which is the main thing of safety is keeping people safe, you're not protecting your biggest asset. So I feel like our company, from taking that approach and looking at it a little bit different than everybody else, we try to go above and beyond. Like, I will spend money on safety over anything else, just because it's like I said, it's like protecting your house. You'll spend money to protect your family or your house or whatever. You don't even think about it. You're like, I need to do this to protect my things. The same thing. Like, we don't really think about it. It's like, all right, what do you guys need to be safe? So that's how we go above and beyond over some of the other companies I've seen that just are like, okay, well, we'll make a budget for safety. We'll do a little bit of this, a little bit of that. Like, no, we want to be, that is our primary, like, protecting our biggest asset, our people.
Okay. So I like that because I do know some people that just do the bare minimum.
Right.
So that's great that you guys do that. So for some of the services that you guys offer, like what are some of those big occupational safety hazards that you see like in that day-to-day work?
So like, I primarily work in the aviation kind of part of and that's what my background is. For the last 20 years, I've been in aviation. So for me, a lot of what we have is either like fall protection is a big one, because and it's kind of a tricky one because it's not like your traditional fall protection that you would have for, like, say, a construction site. Like, all right, they set up stuff to do that. But sometimes you're working on a helicopter that's 30 feet in the air, outside. There's no hangar, there's no building to attach anything to. So you got to kind of get creative with some of the fall protection we use. That's the main one that I see in my industry. There's that one, and then there's a lot of stuff that you do. We work with a lot of hazardous chemicals. So the proper equipment for that, whether it's a forced air respirator, if you're working with like fuel in a fuel tank, or just a regular, full face respirator or whatever it is, and then like Tyvek suits, gloves, any of that kind of stuff that protects you from those things. There's a real big thing came out about, I don't know, I want to say 10 years ago or so. I was working in the industry, and they found out a lot of people were getting cancer from a thing called hexavalent chromium. And it's basically a byproduct of when they sand or do a lot of metal work on the aircraft to repair certain things. It's a dust that goes in the air or whatever. And they had to shift. They were just using like paper masks and that kind of stuff, but they found out that the paper masks weren't very useful. So everybody had to switch to full face respirators, that kind of stuff.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. It's kind of a big industry thing. And I know I grew up, my dad did construction for 35 years, back in the 70s and 80s. And he built like half of Los Angeles, most of the buildings in LA he worked on. And he used to wash his hands in MEK, which is a really caustic chemical they don't even really sell anywhere anymore. You have to like specially get it. They sell a derivative of it, but the actual like full on MEK is really hard to even get these days. And he used to wash his hands in it because there was no standards. Nobody knew it was bad for you. So the hexavalent chromium is kind of like the same thing for me. It's like something they figured out later. So that goes back to like protecting your people. If you're not doing what you can to protect them in the beginning, like a lot of people spend that, all right, well, OSHA says we got to do this, But if you're just doing that minimum, at some point, something's going to come out and go, hey, you should have probably been doing a little bit more. You would have protected your guys from this, 10 years down the road, they find out something you were doing is bad for you,
Hmm.
from what I've seen.
So how do you train your employees to follow the OSHA standards?
It depends on kind of where they're at. Like, a lot of stuff, if they're remote, you kind of got to do what you can do. I personally like to train people in person and have them do certain things. Like for me, I'm a learner by doing. So you kind of got to tailor it to how certain people learn. Some people don't learn that way either. Some people learn better by reading or watching a video. So we try to tailor it to the situation because sometimes people are remote. I've worked all over the world. I've been in other countries and I've worked for companies that I've never even been to the headquarters for the company. I just worked for them somewhere overseas, So sometimes the training for us, like we have to put it out via video as best we can, and then some documentation. But I prefer to do in-person training and actual have some like hands-on experience with it. So I think you remember it more when you're actually doing it and being immersed in it, especially when it comes to like, how to hook things up. And I think stories work really well in the training. Like if you have some real world scenarios, things that have happened versus just some like video somebody made that's like, well, this could happen. Like in my industry, in the aviation industry, everybody knows somebody that's fallen off of an aircraft and been seriously injured, or killed in a very rare case. But I know a guy that he was up working, and it was on an S-61. He's maybe 15, 20 feet in the air. And he turned around and the work platforms are built into the aircraft. The actual engine stands open up like this and you stand on them. And it's about, I don't know, 1.5 feet or 2 feet of working platform, and that's it. And they were somewhere remote. They didn't have the right equipment. And he turned around and kind of like lost his balance and had to jump off of the aircraft, right? About 20 feet. Broke both of his femurs. And he can walk again now, but not really well. So, had he had on some kind of harness or something, which some other places I've worked, once you get up there, climbing up there, you're kind of like hanging out there anyway because there's nothing to attach you. But a lot of places I work, you attach the main mass of the head so that if you do fall, something catches you at least.
Mm-hmm. So is that one of like the more like bigger issues? Is just like falling and.
Yeah, in aviation it is because you're usually working on the helicopter, and it's either like the head part or the tail, and like the tail you're usually using a good 20-foot ladder. So sometimes you're up a ladder 20 feet, kind of usually hanging over something, trying to reach something. It's not really designed in a way that it's easy to get to a lot of the stuff. You're usually using both your hands to get at something, or the scariest things that I don't like doing is on some of those things, they require a great amount of torque to attach a part. So you're using this massive torque wrench that you have to put a ton of force into, and you're up a ladder or standing on this little tiny platform or sitting actually even on top of the head sometimes to torque this thing. You know what I mean? You're putting a bunch of effort. So it's really easy to like lose your balance and fall off or something like that.
Mm-hmm. Interesting. Okay. So in your industry, I think we kind of went over this, but why might someone need a health and safety officer?
It's always good to have like a second set of eyes and somebody that's driving that train, I guess. It's like anything. I'm a big fan of servant leadership. So if you have a safety officer, somebody that is the leader of safety, it helps to have somebody that is talking to their people constantly, and especially in different locations. Like, all right, as a servant leader, you want to say, all right, what do you guys need to be safer? But if you don't have somebody that's actually driving that train and you're just ticking a box with the OSHA standards, okay, well, we sent them some helmets, we sent them this, but the guys get out in the field and they're like, hey, we're doing this dangerous thing. If we fall, even with a helmet on, I'm probably going to die. Like, you're checking that block. Okay, yeah, you did it. But, you need somebody that is that servant leader that can actually talk to their people and say, all right, what do you need to be safer? If that's their whole job is to be safer, because as leaders, sometimes, I might be the leader and I might ask them the question like, hey, what do you guys need to, get the job done? Or, how can we make more money doing this or whatever? But if you have something specifically safety and that's all they think, that's their whole job. My brother-in-law is actually a safety officer in the Army, and that is his sole job, is to make sure everybody's doing things safe, which is, I see it in what he does. And it's really cool because that's all he has to think about. That's his whole job, is to make sure that everybody's doing what they're supposed to do. And I did a tour in Iraq with him. and it's kind of a really dangerous place. So there's a lot of things that happen, and having somebody that's always kind of focused on that is an advantage over just hoping that management or the leaders that are in place are thinking about it, because they have a million other things to think about. So you need somebody that's all they think about.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I'm sure that's a whole different level of safety as well.
Yeah. Oh, yeah, definitely. Well, I mean, if you look at it from this kind of example, like you wouldn't have your chief financial officer worried about day-to-day operations, right? He's focused on taxes and assets and that kind of stuff. You wouldn't be like, all right, guy, you're the CFO, like, let's go. You're in charge of these guys over here running this project. He'd be like, I don't know, that's not my job. That's not, he wouldn't be focused on that. His job is to focus on this. So if you have a chief, I haven't seen it really. I mean, kind of. I haven't seen it to the level in an industry that it should be. Like the CIO is kind of a new thing, right? It's a chief information officer, right? Some companies do have like a chief safety officer, but they're not treated the same in that tier, which they probably should be, because like I said, safety is probably the most important thing, because if you're not protecting your assets, what's the point? Like you lose a guy or whatever. It's like it's not just that you lost, you might lose your most important person. You know what I mean? So to me, I don't know why that hasn't risen to that level yet, but I think it should. Like chief information officer is a new thing because of all the data breaches, because of the money it's costing people. You know what I mean? You would think safety would be the same, because safety costs you a lot of money too. So that,
yeah,
in the sense that if somebody gets hurt, now you're paying for this and you're paying for that, and you lost a guy. You know what I mean? It kind of like compounds. I don't know why in that structure of CEO, chief financial officer, chief information officer, there should be a CSO, probably a chief safety officer,
yeah,
which I guess there probably is in some companies.
yeah. Well, I mean, I'm with you there. I think safety comes first. That's why they say safety first.
Right. A lot of companies say it, but don't actually practice it.
That's true. Well, thank you, Brandon, for talking with us today. And I think, like your industry is just so interesting, especially like how you guys are using your safety people. And I know you guys offer safety services too. And I think that's amazing. So thank you for being on with us today and representing Biorn.
Thank you, Kenneth. You have a great day.
Yeah, you too. Bye, Brandon.
Bye.